One, and we are live. Good morning, good afternoon, good day. Just depends on when you are watching this video, where you are in the world. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Clara Lyons-DeVaughn, and I am the broker owner of Lyonsview Realty. Our team provides residential, commercial for small businesses and nonprofits, and property management services. I'm excited to announce Lyonsview Academy, which is coming soon. That will be our pre-licensing and continuing education component of the business. We also do credit counseling and distressed housing solutions. So just welcome, welcome, welcome. Lyonsview Realty, we launch Financial Fridays to really help you stay current on the trends that impact your bottom line. Our goal is to provide you with the resources, information, and tips to assist you in making the best financial decisions. And our commitment is really to maximize your wealth building power now and in the future. So I'm glad that you tuned in today. Thank you. Feel free to like and share this video. Our guests are really here as a resource to you. So feel free to ask questions. You can put those down in the comments section, and we will go from there. Let me go back to comments so I can see your questions. Great. So today we have a very, very special guest, Ms. Chandra Betner-Gray, or do I say attorney or esquire? What's appropriate?
Well, for my friends, they just call me Chandra, but my staff and team members, they call me Attorney Chandra Betner-Gray.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you, Attorney Betner-Gray.
It's my pleasure.
As well. People call Lyons who? Lyons-DeVaughn.
I know. It can be a doozy. So wherever people feel comfortable, if they feel comfortable calling me Gray or Betner, either one I love dearly. It's who I am, and so it's perfectly fine. However you feel comfortable.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate joining us here today. I met Ms. Chandra. Recently. We had a town hall event about fair housing and landlord-tenant issues and rights, and she was just phenomenal. So I wanted to bring her back today. We're going to be talking about contracts, and June was homeownership month. And for many of you, you've walked through this series. We started with savings, we did debt, we talked about credit, we talked about the loan process, we talked about the title process. And today we're going to be talking about the contract and, the role of an attorney in the real estate transactions. It's so important because people sign documents all day, every day.
Right.
A lot of times they don't know, they haven't read what they're signing. They want to ask me, what does it mean? And I say, ask your attorney, or get an attorney. But first, let's start out. If you could just introduce yourself, tell our guests a little bit about who you are.
Absolutely. Well, my name is Chandra Betner-Gray, as we already talked about. I am a solo practicing attorney in the state of New Jersey, in the county of Burlington, but I service the full state of New Jersey. I have a small staff of about 3 paralegals. I have a legal assistant and a young associate who recently graduated law school, who is preparing to take the bar exam. So I'm very excited about pouring into her and helping her as she is an up and coming attorney, and opportunity for me to begin the shift of changing hands of power. I am very, very interested and passionate about both real estate and estate planning, which I have found go hand in hand. I grew up in a house where my mother was a real estate agent and ultimately broker. And so I grew up hearing the words and the terms and maybe not understanding, but it was kind of like put into my DNA from childhood. And so when I decided to strike out on my own and do my own practice, it was immediately the first thing in my mind. And I'm just very excited about where God is placing me to be a help to the people in my community, to enable them understand, like you were saying, contracts and what they're entering into, and to help them into home ownership and sometimes into investment.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
pretty awesome. And so what would you say was the main reason that had you kind of focused? Was it your relationship with your mom and seeing her as, a broker owner in real estate, or why did you focus on real estate related issues?
Yeah, I think that played a huge part in it. My mother passed away at a young age. She was 39, but prior, like when she got sick, one of the things that she kept saying to me was, and at the time I was 16, she said, when you turn 18, as soon as you turn 18, get your real estate license. And of course, of all the things she was pouring into me, that was one thing that I kind of thought I disregarded. But as I entered into adulthood, and I wasn't exactly obedient, I didn't do it at the age of 18, but I finished college and I just kept hearing her voice. It just kept ringing back to me. And so after college, I got my real estate license, and I kind of entered in trying to figure my way out. I didn't have a whole lot of mentorship, but I learned quickly that this was a way in which we could empower ourselves and each other, that we can build wealth in our community, and to make sure that we had a roof over our head. And so it never left me. It was kind of like in my soul. And so even I did real estate for a little while, then I went to law school. After law school, after I took the bar exam, I wanted to go back to real estate school because there were some years in between and I didn't keep my license active. I went back to real estate school after law school, reactivated my license, and it just came together. It was kind of like a crashing of everything I had learned, what I had grown up with. And I knew that there was purpose for the real estate kind of calling on my life. And then this move into the legal field, and it just clicked. It was like these two things go together. And I was excited to do it.
Wow. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
To lose your mom at such a young age is motivation. That's a motivation enough, especially the field that she was in, and then to keep going. I'm sure she's very, very proud of you.
Thank you.
That you followed in her footsteps and not only took her advice to get your real estate license, but also add on to that your Esquire degree, your attorney.
Yeah, my first doctor.
Pretty powerful. So I know she's smiling down from heaven, and she's very proud of you today. So thank you for joining us. And could you share kind of some of the services that you provide as a real estate attorney?
Yeah, absolutely.
Estate planning, some of the other things as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry, I didn't intend to cut you off. So as a real estate attorney, I do a series of things. Of course, a lot of folks know that once you sign the contract, what's called the attorney review period begins. And that's typically a 3-day period of time that excludes weekends and holidays. So as a service, I do attorney review. So I will review the contract. If for some reason I think that the contract is too heavily weighted against my clients, then I will write what's called a letter, a notice of disapproval, which is my attorney review letter to the other side. So the notice of disapproval can function to cancel the contract, but most times it doesn't. Most times it notifies the other side that we want to talk about some of these terms and we want to negotiate on that. So that's something that I do. Most times I advise my clients, if they're going to come to me for attorney review, to engage me for the whole transaction, not just the 3-day attorney review period, because you almost always run into something that you can use the assistance of an attorney, whether that's something with negotiating repairs on a home, even if the property is as is. Sometimes people think it's as is, so you're just stuck with it. And I have found, because I'm unafraid to ask, that even sometimes in as is transactions, you can get something done. So, I help with that. I do negotiations. I say things that other people, even sometimes agents, are not comfortable saying. So I will help with that. I also, if there's any issues that arise during the title search process and they cross into kind of like legal waters and court involvement or child support or any of those sort of things, my office helps with that. I also help with the transfer if there's solar panels on properties. A lot of times that can get in the weeds, and my office helps with the process of that. So we help with every kind of area in real estate. We've even helped folks with mortgage modifications, people who are struggling paying their mortgage. We help with people who are facing foreclosure and trying to help them stop that. So those are some of the things that we do around real estate, right? And we have connections with people who have issues with taxes and they want to appeal their taxes. While my office can do that, I have another law firm that I think does a better job. So we connect people to them. And then around estate planning, I think if you're going to get a new asset, you want to make sure your estate plan is in order. So we also encourage folks to make sure that they have an estate plan. And a lot of times we think, well, I don't have millions or whatever, so I don't need to have it. No, your life, in my opinion, and really should be in your opinion, is worth more than any asset, any millions that you can have. So we need to have a will, a power of attorney, and advanced directive. I said power of attorney. Yeah. And advanced directive. And then sometimes, depending on what your goals are, you may even want to have a trust. So we do all of those things in my law office. And we encourage folks to have a package, and we think they go hand in hand with real estate. So those are my primary focuses. And then we have landlord tenant as well, which is kind of flows out of real estate. And we help landlords and sometimes tenants in their disputes with one another, making sure that they're adhering to the rules and the law.
Wow, you cover a wide range of services. And I'm glad that you shared that, because a lot of times I don't think people understand all of the services that are available to them and how all of those things really, work to help them keep and build their wealth.
Right. Yes.
People don't want to sometimes incur the cost, or they just don't know. They don't know that, as you stated, the estate plan is their most important wealth asset.
Yeah.
And then the house is their next most important wealth asset. After their family, and then putting together all of the pieces, as you said, for a full package, full package of services, and then the contracts. I can't tell you the number of times I typically give a client the contract before we even go to before we find a property, so they can review it and know what's in it and know what questions to ask, because sometimes knowing those things assists with moving forward. So you mentioned the attorney review phase being 3 days. When you're counting that contract, is it after, because this question comes up a lot, is it after that third day, or is it that night, or is it the next day?
So that's a good question. For me, I just count the full day, I give myself all the way until the end of that third day. So if it's midnight, that, I'll give myself that time. Now, to be completely honest, if you get an attorney, say on your second day or even on your third day, and they don't get your contract until that day, your attorney is within their right to notify the parties, I just received this contract, and attorney review period will extend, right? So it begins now and it will extend until I'm completed with the process of reviewing, and if there's an attorney on the other side negotiating. Sorry, it seems like it's getting a little dark on my side. So my point is that most times, once I get a contract, I communicate with the other parties and I say, I just received the contract. I'm going to be reviewing the contract, and my attorney letter, opinion letter, or what have you is forthcoming. And usually that will put everybody on hold until we've completed this negotiation or review back and forth. So that can go from 3 days to a week sometimes, depending on whether there's negotiations going back and forth. So from the contractual point of view, yes, it's 3 days from the time that the last party signs the contract. So if the buyers sign it and then sellers don't sign it until 3 days later, those 3 days in between don't count. It's not until that it's fully executed that the counting begins. And then, like I said, for myself, of course, we don't count the weekends, we don't count holidays. And then I would give myself a full complete day. Even if I got it in the middle of the day, I would count till the end of the third day, if that makes sense. But
Yes.
yeah, it can be a little confusing counting. I love the idea of getting an attorney, not just because I am an attorney, but because you buy yourself a little bit more wiggle room, a little bit more time. You even buy yourself time to get that deposit. A lot of times people think, well, I signed it, let me give the deposit right now. But even the wording of the standard New Jersey contract allows you to wait until the end of attorney review before exchanging hands with that escrow deposit.
Mm-hmm.
So, get an attorney and make sure that this is what you want to do, and get that deposit in order, whatever gives you a little bit of time. I mean, I don't know why not.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned a real key word, which is negotiable. So everything in a contract is negotiable.
Everything.
And I find when you have an attorney, negotiating sometimes is easier, because it takes the client out. They can discuss what their wishes are and have someone negotiate that on their behalf, whether it be the attorney or, the real estate agent. And you mentioned something else about the as is sale. We're in a contract now, and the person said, "Oh, it's as is," and I'm like, "But everything is negotiable." From the time that the contract was signed,
right,
as you say, fully executed, signed by both parties, different information has come to light that wasn't known at that time, and so there's still time to negotiate that. So there's typically 3 different times that someone can get out of a contract, a real estate contract. One of those is attorney review. One is the inspection period, and then the other is mortgage commitment. So when you're reviewing the contract, what types of things, like what are some of the reasons or things that people want you to address in the contract on their behalf?
Okay, so one of the issues is, of course, we talked about, well, during the attorney review period, sometimes people will have a second thought about how much they want to give, for instance, for escrow deposit, right? So maybe when you put the offer in, you said you're going to put $10,000 down, and then you thought better of it, and you said, you know what, I actually only want to put $5,000 as my escrow deposit. Can you make that change? Yes, that's something that I can change in attorney review. So even though you offered $10,000 down, I can say, listen, the escrow deposit is only going to be $5,000, and instead of it being held by the listing broker, it's going to be held by buyer's attorney or by the title company. A lot of times I like to choose the title company because it feels like they're more of a neutral third party. I don't have to, nobody has to wonder about it being in my trust account. I don't have to worry about it being in somebody else's trust account, so those are things that I can divert. So I look for where that escrow deposit is supposed to go. If somebody wants me to change the amount, I certainly will change that. I look for how much time is allotted for them to get the mortgage commitment. I look for how soon closing is supposed to take place. So if I anticipate a problem, like if I anticipate that they put the closing date too soon, then I will knee jerk to move that out a little bit. Not because I think it will definitely take that much time, but because why not err on the side of giving us more time and not having to do an amendment to extend time. If I know that these transactions are going about 60 days, and I notice that they're asking for a 40 days or 45 days to close, I'm inclined to say, hey, let's push that out to 60 days. And if we close in 45 days, excellent, So those are things I look for. I go immediately to the clause about certificate of occupancy, which I think is like paragraph 9. I want to see what that limitation is right there on both sides, whether I represent the seller or the buyer. If I represent the buyer, I want to see that they didn't limit that too much. And a lot of times, if the seller's agent writes that contract, they're going to limit the amount that the seller has to obligate it, that the seller is obligated to make repairs, right? So the standard amount is 1.5% of the sale price. But I've noticed that a lot of agents will write in somewhere like $1,000 or $1,500 or something like that. I just had a contract where someone tried to write in $300, and 1.5% of the sale price was like $8,000. So I said, oh, absolutely not. You're not going to limit the expense to $300. So what that means is, if anything is wrong in the house over $300, the seller has the option to say, I'm not going to do it. And it does, and the contract is not canceled. So, I look at that. I look at anything around appraisal. right? So if I'm representing the buyers now, I automatically send an appraisal addendum that says if this does not appraise for the full price or the full sale price, then the buyers can walk away and get their full escrow. So even though we know that that is kind of like said in that contract, it's not expressed enough for me. And so we add the addendum to make sure that a buyer is not stuck having to purchase a home that significantly underappraises, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Those are all really, really, really valid points and beneficial, despite if you're on the seller side or if you're on the buyer side. Those are key points, in the transaction to make it run smoothly and to move forward and to, to let people know what their rights are in the contract. Right. I think the number one thing is people really are not aware the rights that they're given and the rights that are taken away by what's written. And one of the, it's a 13-page document. And one of the things that's in there is that time is of the essence.
Right.
Talk a little bit about that, because I think sometimes people lose the concept of what time is of the essence means in the state of New Jersey.
Right. So that particular clause talks about the fact that these time frames that we put in this contract need to be adhered to. Right. So even though, things can be changed, and yes, we can make amendments and all of that, that if you don't stick to these deadlines, these dates that are set out here, then you are essentially breaching the contract or you're outside of contract. Right. And that matters because now, most times it doesn't happen because people really do want these transactions to go through, right? So as a matter of like routine business, we normally, we may be outside of contract, we may be a little bit outside of the time frames, and we'll keep going. Ultimately, we'll need to do an amendment, but sometimes we'll keep going knowing that we've already gone a little bit beyond these dates, right? But the dates are not meant to just be a suggestion. They are to let us know, hey, time is of the essence. And if you're not sticking to these times, then that is a breach of this contract. And you actually put the other party in power to take legal action if they wanted to. Of course, the idea that time is of the essence in this contract, and then if people don't stay on time, that you would take this to court, it kind of seems counterproductive because the process in court doesn't always move like time is of the essence. But it does apprise the parties and let them know that if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, if you're dragging your feet, if you're not making any effort to meet these deadlines, that you're on the hook legally. And so that's really what that means.
Indeed. I really encourage buyers especially to talk to their lenders, because the lenders a lot of times are, things get delayed and it happens, but they just think, it's just going to take longer. Well, no, I have to keep explaining to the lender, and I would like the buyers to explain to their lender, I have this date to meet, contractually. Right. And so if you don't think you can do what you said you can do by that date, you need to tell me at least a week prior to that so that everybody can be informed and everybody has to agree. You can't just decide that it's okay. Both parties have to sign on it, which gets us to this word executed.
Yeah.
Like what does executed mean, in a contract, that agreement between both sides.
Right. Well, it means that both parties have read this contract, have had the opportunity to allow their attorneys to read the contract and advise them. But it also means that after having done that, or even prior to having done that, that they have signed on the dotted line. I believe every page may also have has a place for initialing, right? So whether you really did read or not, by executing, by putting your John Hancock on every page, you're saying, yes, I agree to this. Yes, I'm going forward to this, and I can be held legally responsible to follow through on my commitments here. So that's what that means. And then I wanted to mention about the timeline, the other part that is beneficial, not that your agent can't do this, because certainly your agent can do it, but a lot of times agents are doing a lot of things, and so are attorneys, but working together, we can really help make sure that these transactions stay on time, right? So one of the things that my office does is we try to keep a really close look on what the dates are. What are the dates? When is the mortgage commitment due? When is our inspection time up? When do we have to have a request for repair letter out? And we can make sure that we're communicating to all the parties, hey, here are the deadlines. We need to close on this time. So we're not afraid to, we call the lenders, we call the title company. We want to know, hey, was the CD sent out in time for us to close, to meet the TRID guidelines? Like, are we on time? Are we cleared to close? We're following up on all of that on a regular basis. When it seems like the lenders are behind schedule, I tell you what, we call, we write, we email, we do everything short of showing up at their door, especially once we have that mortgage commitment, because we're like, hey, look, you've made this commitment. Our client has done everything they were supposed to do. We need to close, so we really, it's kind of like having an army behind you when you engage an attorney's office. Now, of course, I can't speak for every attorney's office. Some of them, maybe they do the bare minimum. And then if you need them to come in and do something for you, they'll do it. But we aren't like that in my office. We walk with our clients and the agents that understand the benefit. We walk hand in hand through this process. We work hand in hand. So I encourage agents to not be afraid, and if they are afraid, if they've had bad experiences and you're in the state of New Jersey, call my office, because I am also an agent. And so I understand, the fiduciary duty. I understand what you're trying to get out of the transaction. And I'm here to help you. And I'm here to help our joint client get the best outcome, get what they want. And so I think it's really a benefit to have a team if you're a buyer, especially, but if you're a buyer or a seller, to have a team of professionals working on your behalf. You can literally like kick your feet up and watch your way to the closing table, and let your professionals handle the hard work.
Indeed. There were two things that came up out of what you said. One was TRID, if you could explain what the TRID guideline is, because some people aren't familiar with it. And then the other is basically getting agreement after changes. So you have the initial contract that you sign off on. And then when there are changes to the contract, like after a request for repairs or during the mortgage commitment, if there are changes, getting a document that says these are the changes that we agree to, and everybody signs off on it,
right?
Agreement. Mm-hmm.
So that's called an amendment. That's one of the things that I also have my degree in English. So I'm always like really, I guess you could say, parsnickety about the wording. People interchangeably use addendum and amendment, but they really are not interchangeable. And addendum is adding to the contract, right? So that's why we see like a FHA addenda, or like I mentioned, the appraisal addendum. So that says this original contract plus these wordings, or you'll see a seller concession addendum. These are additions to, these are like added pages to the contract, right? An amendment changes the terms. So if we agree that maybe initially we said no seller concession, but we realized because the lender is saying, hey, we're having a little trouble, we need a little bit of a concession, and we come to a negotiation or an agreement, we can draft an amendment to the contract that says seller now agrees to add $5,000 as a seller concession. Or in the case of repairs. Now, of course, this depends, because lenders, especially I think FHA and maybe VA, they have some limits on how high you can go with a concession or a credit from the seller side, right? But even with regard to repairs, if you want repairs and the seller says, hey, I don't have time, but I can give you a credit, sometimes we can work that credit into, toward kind of like closing costs. And we'll we'll memorialize that in an amendment. Okay. As far as repairs are concerned, we can do a I always do a request for repair letter. So this comes after the inspection. The inspection report says, hey, all these things are at issue or concerns in the house. I speak with my client. I say, of these things, which are the most important to you that you want to request? Some every now and then I'll have a client say everything, and I'll say, okay, if that's what you want. But I do prepare them that sellers may not say yes to everything. I draft a letter. My office drafts a letter asking for repairs. The seller comes back and will say yes, no, or I'll give you a credit. And then, we'll put it in writing what they're going to do. And they have a time frame to do it within. I made a mention of TRID. And what I was talking about was there is a 3-day, clock or seasoning period. So the lender has to send a closing disclosure to the borrower at least 3 full days before closing. And I'm not sure that 3 days count, weekends count. I think it needs to be business days, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So we have to make sure that the CD has gone out. I like for it to go out a week before. Now, some things can change on it, but for the most part, everything that's going to be like the rate and all of that, the interest rate and all that needs to be disclosed to the buyer a minimum of 3 business days before closing, or we can't close. So we have to sometimes, because it didn't go out in time, we have to push closing. So it's on us to be making sure, hey, is a CD done? Has it gone out? Does the title company have it? Does the borrower have it? So that's what I was referring to.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that wasn't too confusing.
No, that's great. And the other thing, around that is when the buyer originally got into contract or got into relationship with the lender, they should have given them an estimate.
Right.
Right. What was estimated then and what is the final closing disclosure.
Exactly.
We call it a CD. Shouldn't be too far off, unless you've agreed to some changes as a buyer. So
right.
Very, very, very good point. I guess the last thing that I want to talk about for today in terms of the contract is that whole ability to convey title, which is on the estate side of the house. What types of issues? Actually, there are 2 things I want to cover, so I don't know how we're going to fit that with the time. But one is the ability to convey title and what types of things might impact that. And then the last thing is we're in COVID, and there have been some changes with the rights of both homeowners in the forbearance process and tenants, in the
eviction
process. Yeah, if you can kind of just recap where we are now, because I think the deadline happened, and I don't know if they extended it or not.
It just got extended.
Okay, so those are the 2 things, and then we'll wrap.
Okay, good. So I'm just gonna make a note so I don't forget. Okay, so regarding title. So that's why we engage. Typically, my office engages a title company to work with me. Do I have the software to do it? Yes, but I don't like to take away from what I'm doing. I like the idea of working with a title company because that's all they do, right? So they run title searches. They make sure, and this is the purpose of this. They make sure that the person who is saying that I'm going to sell this house, that I'm going to convey or give my ownership interest to the other party actually has title, actually has full ownership to do that, right? That they have the right legally to do that. Some of the issues that may arise, and this is something that I had happen. It was very funny to me, actually. I had a lady come to me. She wanted to sell her property to, it was probably a loved one. That's a whole nother thing with arm's length transactions and all of that. But she wanted to sell the property, and she didn't disclose to me that she was married, right? The reason she didn't disclose it is because they had been separated for more than 10 years. And he was not in the state. They were not in communication. And it was a really bad separation. How I found out, she certainly should have disclosed it to me, but she didn't. So when we went to prepare the deed, this was before even really doing the title process, right? So my initial thing, as soon as she came in to engage me, was to search for her deed. When I searched for her deed, I found that it had her name and a gentleman's name on it. So we called her and we said, who is X, Y, and Z? And she lost it. She was cussing and screaming, and I never want to mention his name. And I let her have her, her vent fest. And then I told her, we can't do anything for you because this property is not fully titled to you. And so without the involvement of your husband who you're separated from, we can't do it. So that's an example of times when someone thinks they have full title, but they don't have full title because somebody else's name is on the deed. Sometimes people inherit properties from parents, grandparents, and have never probated or gone through the legal process of transferring that title to themselves. They've never got rid of other beneficiaries out of the way. And so because that was not resolved, when they go and try to sell the property, they can't do it because it was never handled the right way when the initial owner passed away. So those are two of the big ones, but there's all sorts of issues. It can be liens and things like that can put what we call a cloud on the title that can prevent it from being clear title going to the next person. So I hope that makes sense. Those are also things that legally my office can help with. So if probate wasn't properly done, we can backtrack and say, okay, we got to go through the probate process before you can properly sell this property. So those are things we can help with. And so I guess unless you have a question on that, I'll transition to COVID.
I'll hold it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
That'll take us down another rabbit hole, but
yeah, it really can.
We have to bring you back again so we can focus on that area because there's a lot that goes on.
It's so much. And I found, like in some of the minority communities, it's one of those things that happen time and time again because on the front end, we don't want to. It's a series of things, right? I think one of them is we don't want to make the financial investment up front. We don't recognize that on the back end, that investment will be like 5 times what you would have paid if you would have, invested up front in estate planning. I think the other thing is that there's some fear around estate planning that somehow we feel like if we put these things in writing, that we advance our death, that we advance somehow our mortality, but that is not the case. And it's the equivalent, it's the exact equivalent of having insurance, right? Just because I put insurance on my car, it doesn't mean that I'm going to total it the next time I go out. I pray that I never have an accident, but whether I ever do or not, it needs to be insured. It's the same thing. If I value my vehicle, I need to value my life. Okay, so I'm gonna get off that soapbox because once you get me on it,
that's a powerful soapbox because the wealth, the wealth of oneself, investing in oneself is just amazing. And I'm on that soapbox with you. So we'll definitely continue that discussion.
Yes, thank you. I want to say I have a couple of episodes of a podcast, and I'm not just trying to
really
promote myself, but I'm sharing it because this is something I talk about on all my episodes. COVID came in and really interrupted my season. So we'll be starting again with a new season in September, but it's called This Legal Light of Mine. This Legal Light of Mine. And it's on all podcast platforms. And the reason I'm mentioning it is because if you have any interest in what I'm talking about around estate planning or whatever, you really want to listen to it. Obviously, I'm a person of faith. I'm a minister. I'm an attorney and a real estate agent. So all of those things kind of come together. And that's why it's called This Legal Light of Mine. So if you want to hear a little bit more about that, please check my podcast out. So now transitioning into this COVID through the Federal CARES Act and executive orders by the governor here in the state of New Jersey. Obviously, I'm sure it's the same in other states, but I can only speak for the state I'm in because I'm closely watching what our governor is doing. There's some extra coverages, help, and provisions for homeowners and for tenants. Okay. So landlords, I know, some of them are at their wits' end right now because some people have lost their jobs. Some people are struggling financially. Some people are not able to pay their rent like they should. Some people are taking advantage, and that's unfortunate, but some people really are having a hard time, right? In the state of New Jersey, the governor has issued an executive order that places a moratorium on evictions. What that means is that landlords can file, but they cannot formally evict. They can't kick folks out right now. And that extends 60 days past the time that the state of emergency is in place. So even if the governor were to say the state of emergency ends today, evictions still can't happen, like the formal kicking out, like, warrant for removal. You can file, but you can't get them out for another 60 days. I just heard yesterday, though, that the governor, I think probably in his last live update, he extended the state of emergency. So I don't know what the date that he extended it to is at this moment, but I did just hear that he extended it. So if it would have ended in July, it's at least going to go for another month, maybe even until September. So I understand that this is really sad and unfortunate for some landlords. Now, if you are a landlord who you don't just have a wealth of extra funds and you literally take the rent that you receive and you pay your mortgage, the good news is that the benefits of the Federal CARES Act extend to you, because if you have a federally backed mortgage, and most of these private mortgages as well, if you call them right now during the COVID time and you say, hey, I'm struggling, my tenant's not paying the rent, I need help, they must, under the Federal CARES Act, give you some other option. So it can be a forbearance in the way of, okay, you don't have to pay for 3 months, but then I would be careful. I'd be a little leery of that, because most times that means that you don't pay for 3 months, but then at the end of those 3 months, for instance, all of it's due, right? But they may have other options where it'll go on the back of the loan, or, they'll let you reduce the amount that you're paying. So there's several options. I can't say what every mortgage lender or servicer is going to say, but what I can say is that you have a right under this Federal CARES Act to be given help if you are struggling as a homeowner to make ends meet paying your personal mortgage or even the mortgage on your investment properties, okay? Especially if they're federally backed. So that means if they're FHA or VA loans or Fannie Mae, I want to say. So just make sure, don't just struggle. Don't just, let yourself go into foreclosure or what have you. Also, just like there's an eviction moratorium, there's also a foreclosure moratorium. So even if foreclosure has been filed against you, they cannot execute all the way to final judgment, to sheriff's sale. Okay, right now the moratorium covers that as well. So this is not an opportunity to take advantage. This is an opportunity to catch up. This is an opportunity to benefit from whatever helps are given by the government so that you can get in right standing, right? And to that end, on July 6th, which is Monday, from July 6th to July 10th, the state of New Jersey has an initiative. Now, it works by lottery. So if I were you on July 6th, on Monday at 9 a.m., I would be at my computer. The state of New Jersey is rolling out a rental assistant initiative. You can search COVID rental assistance New Jersey in Google, and it will come right up. Make sure you save that website. I think it's like New Jersey Consumer Affairs or something like that.
So it's COVID rental assistance. I'm typing it in the chat.
Okay, just Google COVID rental assistance New Jersey, and it will come up for you, and make it from July 6th to July 10th only. That's 1 week. They're accepting applications, and then they will do kind of like a lottery on who they're choosing. But you can get all the details on the website that comes up when you Google that. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't have the exact link.
Oh, that's okay.
On my Facebook page, though, you can find me talking about it and looking at the website. So you can go to my Facebook page and find that video. I'm in like a pink sweater.
What's your Facebook page?
Yes. You can go to facebook.com/Betner-Gray Law. So, and no hyphen, just facebook.com/BETNERGRAYLAW. And if you scroll through, you'll find the video where I'm talking about the rental assistance program. Again, it's 1 week. You don't have time to wait. If you're struggling, go and apply. You have nothing to lose. Okay. So that's really it. Now, I just want to say this last thing to landlords. If you have tenants and they have not communicated with you, they have not paid rent, they're not, saying, hey, I lost my job, and you just feel like they're taking advantage, you still do have some rights. You want to talk to an attorney, because there are some notices that you want to make sure that you are giving out now, so that the minute the opportunity comes for you to execute eviction, if you need to, you have not lost time. Okay, those are things that you want to speak to an attorney, because there are timelines within the Anti-Eviction Act that you want to make sure you're adhering to. You don't want to cross into harassment. You don't want to do anything illegal like that. So you should talk to an attorney who can help you through this time. There is help for all of us. There is help for all of us. And so I just want to encourage everybody to get through, and that at the end, I believe it's going to work out. Even though it might feel bad right now, I think it will still work out in the favor of those of us who are leading with integrity. So that's all I have to say about that.
I mean, this has been a wealth of information. So we've talked about, the contract. One, read it. Two, put an attorney on your team, because the attorney really will look out for your best interest. I'll say Miss Attorney Chandra Betner-Gray will look out for your interests, because attorneys are not created equal.
Right. That's right.
So she will look out for your interests. To have her on your team of professionals through that process. Make sure that any agreements that you have are in writing and signed off by both parties. Is executed. Make sure that you pay attention to the deadlines, or you have someone from Ms. Gray's team assist you with tracking those deadlines in addition to your real estate professional. Make sure you have the proper ability to convey and receive title at the end of that transaction, and that you have your affairs in order. Who's going to speak for you on your behalf if you are not able to. You just want to make sure all those things are in place, and she can help you with those things as well. And if you are a homeowner or a renter, go to her website and get the information on the changes that are happening with the CARES Act. There's a lot of financial assistance that's available.
Yes.
There's also some things in place that really protect you, and in either situation, if you're doing the right thing. So we always want to do the right thing, either as a landlord or as a tenant. Moving forward. So just share your contact information with everyone. How can folks get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, I'm all over Facebook, so you can just search my name, Chandra Betner-Gray. You can also, if you Google that, you'll probably find a bunch of ways to access me. You can go to my website, which of course is www.betnergraylaw.com. Again, I'm on Betner-Gray Law on Facebook. And then I have a public page, Chandra Betner-Gray, also on Facebook. I'm on Instagram as official Chandra B. And like I mentioned a few minutes ago, my podcast, This Legal Light of Mine. My office phone number is right there on the screen, 609-479-1227. And myself or my staff would be really happy to help you, whatever it is that you might be facing in real estate. And I just want to say this about legal fees. Sometimes, one, I don't charge hourly like most of my colleagues do, and they should. I mean, our hours are worth the investment. But I, try to bill in flat rate. And so I say that because sometimes people are afraid of what they might incur. You shouldn't be afraid. And the investment is always worth it. It's always worth whatever the outcome is going to be, and having someone behind you. So that's really all I want to say. Don't be afraid. Come schedule a consultation, talk with me, and let's see how I can work with you and for you.
Indeed. I just want to thank you again. A wealth of information, and just a heart for people, and a heart for really serving in terms of giving legal assistance. So just thank you for joining us today.
It's my pleasure.
Thank those of you who tuned in today. I see Miss Linda out there and some other people. Thank you. If you liked and found value in the information that you received today, please like and share this video with others. And you can also subscribe to the channel if you're on YouTube. You can post any questions. Even if we didn't get them live, we will reach back to you and answer any questions that you might have. And you can also contact Attorney Betner-Gray directly at her 609-479-1227. So you can also reach out to our team at Lyonsview Realty. We're here to assist you, and we'll do consultations as well. So I just want to thank you all for watching today. As I said before, Financial Fridays, it's really here as a resource for you. We want to provide information, trends, and tips on those things that could impact your bottom line, because it all, at the end of the day, equates to money in your pocket, or money in your, wealth in your time, and wealth in your energy. So your bottom line is very important to us, and we hope that you receive something of value today. I'd like to send love, light, and prayers out to anyone who has lost a loved one.
Yeah.
If you have anyone who is in the hospital and you're not able to be with them or to see them, anyone who's experiencing the impact of the physical distancing, and I know people are starting to get back out, please wear your mask and wear gloves if you need to. And again, for all of our essential employees who serve us day to day, who go to work and provide those needed services, our healthcare, people in transportation, food, police, fire, and definitely our leadership. I just want to encourage everyone to take care of themselves, take care of your family, and stay safe. Again, my name is Clara Lyons-DeVaughn. I'm the broker owner of Lyonsview Realty. And Financial Fridays, we stream every Friday at 9:30 a.m. live on Facebook and YouTube, but you can watch the replay anytime. And until then, keep living your best life. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.